the United Kingdom and Europe collapse. It's absolutely hysterical. It appears that, do you remember when I did that video, A Message from God? It was when America was bombing Iran and everything, and God pretty much laid out what was going to happen, and he's been spot on. The one part of my algorithm that hasn't come true out of everything was the fate of the king in Great Britain. So I've been sitting here trying to rework my algorithm, trying to understand where I went wrong, because the king apparently, if it's not robot lips and fake news, the king apparently is siding with the EU, siding with Germany and all that. So he's chosen Molech, not God. God had said that if you're against Russia, you're for the human traffickers. So I'm sitting here trying to work it all out, and I'm saying to the universe, I'm saying to God, like, what happens now? And God has basically spelled it out. What he said in that message, and I'll put a link in the description box below, when it came to the fate of the king in Great Britain, that what happens to Great Britain will be decided by the king, and it will go one of two ways. Either Great Britain gets torn down by the people from the inside out, like America, so there'll be like a revolution, not a civil war like America, but like a revolution. And that without a monarchy, the Commonwealth nations will become republics, and then they would be reborn. They get to all start again, but they wouldn't have the restraints and restrictions of having a monarchy. While the monarchy is allowing Labour and that to do the things they're doing, he will go the way of the monarchy, and it's starting to happen now. He's getting caught up in controversies, he's getting caught up in investigations because he didn't listen. So I'm sitting here saying, okay, looking at the algorithms, it's going to go one of two ways. King Charles and the monarchy, if they choose the right side, I have been able to build a case that makes it look like they were the victims of a centuries-old blackmailing scheme, where they were being walked into controversies that when the poop hits the fan, they won't be able to get themselves out of, that will guarantee the evolution of the monarchy. But if he makes the right decision, he becomes the hero. Great Britain gets saved, Europe gets saved. Great Britain becomes part of bringing world peace. The king becomes the hero. It looks like they were the victims of an elaborate blackmailing scheme. And, he becomes the hero, but if he doesn't make the right decision, he will go down with everybody else. And all the evidence that I have to defend them will now work against them. For example, King Charles sold that Highgrove house to Zelensky, and Zelensky paid for that house using stolen funds. So this controversy in Ukraine, it's like all the countries that are suddenly throwing money at Ukraine, they are 100% trying to shut Zelensky up. It is obvious that all these European leaders, these NATO leaders and that, are terrified that their names are going to start coming out, and it's already happened. Von der Leyen is getting dragged into it like you wouldn't believe. Mark Carney as well. There's calls for Moose to go. They're now calling for Starmer to go. They're getting ready to, the MPs and that are getting ready to decide whether to hold a general election before Christmas, all that sort of thing. The scandal with Meghan Markle having a relationship with Prince Andrew before she got with Harry, and with Prince Andrew losing his title because of the Epstein thing, and now it's come out that the Queen Consort, Harry, was it the King, like they've all been to Epstein's Island, so it's not looking good for them. And then, of course, now with this whole Ukraine investigation scandal coming out, it's all getting linked to child trafficking, with Starmer giving £1 billion to the shipping company of Jeffrey Epstein's, and all these kids that were found that had to be rescued, that it's drawn the king into everything that I warned him he was walking into if he didn't wake up. So now apparently he's had this dinner where he has thrown his support behind Europe, talking about Russia's aggression, and Russia's not even the amount of propaganda that's come out against Russia within the last half a day has been phenomenal, unbelievable. Just so many lies. Oh, they're running out of money, their banks are shutting down, there's infighting, there's this, that, and the other. They're threatening Europe, they're spying. They had people coming, like Keir Starmer was actually dumb enough, basically, to say, two Russian spies got into the UK, and we know this because when we were spying on them in Russia, we followed them spying in Russia all the way to the UK. So we were in Russia spying on spies, and we watched them get in vehicles to get all the way to the UK, so that they could spy on us. Like, that's how dumb he is. He admitted to spying on Russia so that they could watch two men get on a boat and come to the UK so they could accuse Russia of spying. Seriously, oh my God. So now there's news coming out about an election, about them holding elections here in the UK. So Starmer is on the way out. Every law he's brought in, everything he's trying to threaten and punish people with, he can't actually, what people need to understand is he doesn't have the legal right to stop elections, whether they're general or local elections. The Prime Minister cannot stop elections. He has to bring in laws. He has to pass laws to stop elections. And the only reason why he's doing it is because he knows that if these elections go ahead, he's out. But people need to understand that the Prime Minister cannot stop elections, neither local or general. He has no power to. And yet he's making people think that he has the power to stop these elections. The only reason why you're allowed to, the only reason to stop elections is in wartime, or when there's been, national mourning for the monarchy. That's it. Otherwise, he actually has to go to court and change the voting laws, and he's not done that. So he doesn't actually have the legal right to stop these elections, and people are falling for it. So now they're yelling at the king and saying, do something or you're out. And the king's like, yay Molech, yay human trafficking, if the stuff that's coming out on my feed isn't robot lips. But basically, God was waiting for King Charles to make his decision. Whose side are you on? The side of the ones rescuing the children, or the side of the ones taking the children? And he's decided, apparently, if robot lips is anything to go, if the stuff on my feed isn't robot lips, fake news, Elon Musk with his fake news, it looks like he's chosen the side of the Epsteiners, I call them the coalition of Epsteiners, which isn't going to look good for him. So when these investigations come out, they're already under investigation now for some sort of like rental housing scheme thing, that the royal family. They've now been mentioned in the Epstein files, like a lot of them have, from Camilla to, right through to like Harry and Meghan and Diana and all that. So it's not looking good, because what's going to happen is with this investigation in Europe, when they're auditing to find out where all the money's going, they're going to start realising, and it's already actually started happening. I put the evidence up on my X and that. It's all on my social media. I have proof that a lot of the money going to the war in Ukraine is being used for human trafficking. Von der Leyen even eased the borders to allow the traffickers easier access to the children. So, and that's not even a lie, like it's all there. Since her name started coming up in the investigation, she's gone very quiet, and everybody's starting to notice. So these investigations in Ukraine are going to start leading to human trafficking organisations. And I think personally it might be connected to this case against Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Bill Gates, because they're saying that it's Jeffrey Epstein 2.0. And I'm wondering if it's, I don't know how far back it goes, but it could go back to like his presidency, Trump's first presidency, with him having access to certain people. So I think that what we need to watch out for that is coming with this Zelensky investigation is, and with this lawsuit, this case against Musk, Gates and Donald Trump, I think new names are going to start coming out. And this is what they're trying to avoid. This is why they're threatening to go to war with Russia, because they need a distraction, so that while this court case in Florida is going on with Musk and Trump and Gates, if they can distract everyone with a war in Russia, people won't notice that it's people like von der Leyen and Emmanuel Macron and Mark Carney and Trudeau and all that that are having to appear in court. And from the looks of it, it's the kind of court case where these people will have to physically appear in court. They're not going to be able to do it via Zoom. They're going to have to go there to appear in court. So the news is going to be all over it. So when you're seeing people like Macron and Ursula von der Leyen and Keir Starmer turning up during a court case where Bill Gates, Elon Musk and Donald Trump are on trial for human trafficking and basically everything that happened to me, but worse, I think. But yes, similar stories, it's freaky. I said that if the person taking them to court wants my evidence, I'm happy to hand over stuff during my investigation. When I was investigating them all into my own case with what happened to me, I'll have stuff that the plaintiff won't have, that proves who was involved in, if they've named names of, because it says in the thing that it's world leaders, billionaires, celebrities, the rich and powerful, who are all caught up in this Trump Gates Musk trafficking thing. When they start having to appear in court, I have evidence to back up the plaintiff's claims. I've already done my investigation into my own situation, which is eerily similar to this plaintiff, so I have evidence that can actually help the plaintiff. But it means that it would be implicating the king as well. But he's chosen sides, so what can I do? I'm happy to defend the king, and I'm happy to defend Great Britain if they're on God's side. I love God too much to not take God's side, and God is on the side of Russia. And if I risk my freedom, if I risk my life, then I'm doing it for God, because God is trying to protect the children. He's up against these world leaders who are doing everything they can to shut up the human trafficking gangs, to shut up the grooming gangs. Because they don't want people to know how much money they're making from it. This whole war with Ukraine and Russia is all to have an excuse to siphon money through the war effort, so it goes back into the pockets of the people who are making money from the human trafficking and that, and it's people like Mark Carney. Everybody knows it now. It's all over social media. People have started connecting the dots, and now, unfortunately, I say this with a heavy heart. Now that the king has made his decision, and he's not even supposed to be getting involved in politics. The king, the crown and state are supposed to be kept separate. The Magna Carta, he's not supposed to be getting involved, but he has. Can't cry over spilt milk. He's made his decision, which means now everything that is coming as a consequence will be unstoppable. I think God was just waiting for the king to make up his mind which side he was on. That's pretty much what we've been waiting for since summer. And now he appears to have made his decision, so now the rest of it can play out. He was kind of like the last person to add his piece to it, and now he's added his piece to it. It's going to tip the scales, and now we're going to see everything collapse. So what has Britain got to look forward to? Independence. England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales will become completely independent countries. New Zealand will become independent. Australia will become independent. There'll be no more money being paid to the king. He'll be removed off all our money. We'll no longer see buildings with the crown. There'll be no crown courts or anything like that. We'll basically have to tear everything down and start again to become like America, to become republics. That's not going to be a bad thing. Because if it continues the way it's going, we're going to end up like the Jews. We're going to end up like the Jews in the concentration camps in World War II, which is interesting. And I'll put a link in the description box below because I remembered that dream I had where the people were put in the Zorb balls by the aliens while Satan came and sweep the streets of darkness. And in the post, you see people liberating like the Nazi buildings and all of that. And me talking about in the dream how, I can't remember if it was God or Satan, was going around with like the NATO sign, the UN sign, the World Health Organization sign, the World Economic Forum sign and that, the parliamentarian and presidential insignia and that, and he was turning them around, facing them against the wall, so that, which means no longer being recognised. And I said on X, everything that's playing out in the world right now, this very day, is everything that I said was happening in that dream. People are freaking out thinking this is it, we've been rounded up, we're going to concentration camps, this is just like Nazi Germany, we've been overrun by Nazis, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, we are, but in my dream, being put in the Zorb ball, basically we're all being put in a protective bubble so that God and Satan can allow those who need to be held responsible for all the damage that's been done in the world at the moment to show their heads, to pop up like the whack-a-mole. They have to pop their heads up out of the hole so Satan knows who to whack with the whack-a-mole, like a whack-a-mole. And they're all rearing their heads. They're all starting to come out and show their faces. They're revealing their true sides. Mark Carney and von der Leyen and Zelensky and now, Starmer, Rachel Reeves, Yvette Cooper, and now the King, unfortunately, they've raised their heads, so they've put big X's on them, and so now God and Satan know who needs to be removed. And in this dream I was talking about how the people, the masses, the innocent people were put in these protective Zorb ball bubbles where the streets were being cleaned and everybody thought they were being rounded up and that this was the end and blah, blah, blah. But it was actually being done to protect everyone while the clearances happened. The clearances are starting to happen now. They're already calling for Moose of Germany to go. They're calling for von der Leyen. You know, she's already under investigation. She's already in trouble. But she's starting to get pulled into the human trafficking aspect of the money laundering of Ukraine. Keir Starmer's already put himself in there with the human trafficking aspect. And now, unfortunately, because it was like, it can go one of two ways. The king can look like the hero and the victim. My family were a victim of the blackmailing, which Epstein's lot have admitted that's what they did, or they're going to look complicit that they were part of it if they make the wrong decision. It looks like he's made the wrong decision and now he's going to be... What happened to Andrew will now happen to everybody else that was named on that list, which is... They're his two options. And as much as all is well, I love the king, I love the monarchy, I'm proud to, you know, serve and all that. I choose God first. I have to choose the side of God. So the people of Great Britain and the Commonwealth and Europe, just hold tight. I know things seem scary at the moment, but this is all being done so that everybody on the world stage is highlighted so that you can see who's on the side of God and who's on the side of evil, who's on the side of good and who's on the side of evil. God or Molech, Russia or Israel, basically, saving children or hurting children. And I'm proud to say it looks like Italy's changing its tune. Italy's starting to make some very good decisions that might save them at the last minute. So just get ready, because what's going to happen now, according to God's message, when I posted that message up, there'll be a revolution, because under the Magna Carta, if the king doesn't take the side of the people, they have the legal right to cause a revolution and dethrone the monarchy. And that's what's going to be coming now. I think King Charles has possibly just set off a revolution where they're going to get rid of the government and then they'll get rid of the king. It is coming then, because he's made his decision. So then England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales will become completely self-governing. They'll become republics. Same with the Commonwealth. So just get ready. It's not going to be a bad thing for the people of Great Britain having to tear everything down and start again in the Commonwealth nations. It's not going to be a bad thing. It's just going to be hard work, because we're going to be tearing down centuries of British imperial rule to have to learn to stand on our own 2 feet. It will be us taking the training wheels off on how to be an independent country away from a monarchy. But you'll see a lot of countries thrive. Countries like Scotland and New Zealand and that will end up better off. This is a lesson that had to be learned. The world had to learn what they weren't and were willing to tolerate in terms of who's telling them what to do. And everything that's playing out on the world stage right now is so that the world can see who can be trusted and who can't, who has pure intentions and who doesn't, who's on the side of innocence and who's not, who's on God's side and who isn't. And anyone at war with Russia is not on God's side, because, like I said, with my evidence with this case in Palm Beach, I've got more than enough evidence to prove that there's European EU leaders and NATO leaders and that have been financially benefiting from the trafficking of children through Europe, which I'm wondering isn't connected to this case. So I'm wondering whether we're not about to see these names getting dropped in court that are connected to this war in Ukraine. And I'm wondering if that's why all these EU leaders and that are starting to panic and ramp up their funding, and that somebody called it, a Canadian on X called it hush money. And it's like, that's what it is. See, Mark Carney and Yvette Cooper and all that rushing to give Zelensky all this money, it's hush money to shut him up in the hopes that he doesn't name names, in the hopes that he doesn't start saying, well, they made me, Starmer made me do it. And what I said was, Zelensky, they need to, this is one of the reasons why the EU and that were insisting that they were in on that meeting. They want to make, it's like they don't trust Zelensky. They want to make sure Zelensky and his people don't talk, because Zelensky's life and his career and everything is hanging on by a thread, and they're watching him like a hawk. And I said, what needs to happen is Zelensky and Putin need to sit down. Vladimir Putin is the most logical, reasoning, clear-thinking, respectful politician you're ever going to meet. He's willing to make a lot of compromises for the sake of peace. He wants to help liberate Ukraine, not take over it. He has no interest in taking over Ukraine. He's trying to get rid of all the bad people that are trying to stop Ukraine from being Ukraine. And because they keep taking children. And he's trying to stop it all. So I think what Zelensky needs to do is he needs to go to Putin, because he's got a Russian passport. He has property in Russia. He should say, if I sign a peace deal, can you give me sanctuary? Because once this is over, they will come after him. The fact that they're keeping an eye on him and giving him hush money means that they're terrified that he's going to spill the beans and start revealing how deep this money laundering thing goes and just how many pockets it's going into. We know that they've all been buying yachts and, you know, having these big lavish parties, and all the NATO EU members and that turning up with these yachts and second mansions and all of that. So we know where the money's going. So they don't trust him. And I think his best bet would be as if he went to Putin himself without anybody else involved and said, what do you need from me? If you can guarantee me protection, I'll tell you what you need, and then spill the beans on everyone. Because when you want to look at it technically, because I'm a karmic judge, so I have to play devil's advocate, I have to see everything from both sides. Technically, the EU and NATO and that use Zelensky as a puppet. They put him into situations that were dangerous, that are going to be incriminatory in, you know, international courts and that sort of thing. He's never going to be able to recover from the damage that has been done to his reputation and his freedoms and his rights and that, because he allowed NATO and the EU and that to use him as a puppet. He now has a cocaine addiction. You know, he's now one of the most hated people in the world because of his friends' golden toilets and that sort of thing. So there's not a lot of places in the world where he's going to be able to go that's safe other than somewhere like Russia. Because if Vladimir Putin says, I promise you're safe here, he would guarantee it. Nobody else could. And then what I think should happen is that the parts of Ukraine that Russia wants, just let them have it. But have an agreement where the regions of Ukraine that Russia want, Ukraine is not responsible for the financial They're not financially responsible for those areas. The taxpayers would, the taxpayers of those areas, the money would go to Russia. The hospitals, the schools, the infrastructure, everything would be Russia funded. The schools, the hospitals, the police, fire departments, whatever of those regions would be Russia funded. That would save Ukraine a lot of money. That money that wouldn't be going towards those regions that Russia want, they can use all that extra money to help rebuild Ukraine. And then Russia can help Ukraine rebuild. And Ukraine's got all that money left over. That's all that has to happen. Just let Russia have those bits that they want to have, the Russian speaking areas and all that, but let Russia be financially responsible for them. Ukraine would have no financial or legal or any kind of obligation to those areas because they would be seen as, like how in America and Birmingham that we all have Chinatown. Imagine these areas that Russia want in Ukraine were like Russia Town. But everything in Russia Town was Russia funded, Russia owned, Russia government, taxpayer money goes to Russia, you know. So it's like they're living in their own little world inside Ukraine, but where is Russia taking care of them? And then that leaves all that money for Ukraine to rebuild. They'd have like billions that wouldn't be going into the regions that Russia wants. He's only asking for the stuff that's Russian. You have to remember that Ukraine used to be Russian. The Russian capital at one point was Kiev. So it is home to Russia. He just wants a few places that he considers home. So let him have it, let him fund it, let him be responsible for it, let it be like Russia Town in Ukraine, but then Ukraine can use all that money that isn't going into those places to rebuild. That's all that needs to happen. Zelensky can go away. They bring in, they have a fair election, bring in a new Ukrainian president. It gets everyone off the battlefield. Everyone, is creating jobs again. It's settling everything down. Everybody wins. Zelensky isn't being dragged into courts anywhere. He's not having to fear for his life. He still gets to enjoy like quite a fruitful life. And it's kind of, he would be doing a little bit of the right thing. Because it's like he's at the helm of the ship that's going down. And a few years ago, I don't think he probably had the dream of being known as one of the biggest crooks in political history, modern political history. So, yeah, that's all that needs to happen. That's how you bring about a peace deal. It's really not rocket science. It's because everybody else has been getting involved and drowning out what Zelensky and Russia are trying to do. There's so many things they could be doing to work together that has nothing to do with the EU or NATO, where everybody wins. And then Zelensky would be righting some wrongs. And as a consequence, God would let him live. But the way he's going, because of the fact that the EU and NATO don't trust him, and they're keeping an eye on him because they know he's a loose cannon, they're paying him off to shut him up and then trying to create this massive propaganda diversion so that nobody notices when they're having to turn up at this court case of Trump, Musk and Gates. I'm telling you now. And it may end up involving people like King Charles that we see on the news having to go to these trials. Because if you're not on God's side, you're on the side of the traffickers. And the King has just publicly declared, if it's not fake news, his support against Russia, talking about Russia aggression. Russia's not even been aggressive. Like, they're just sitting in the corner minding their own business, trying not to get raped and stolen from and accused of things they haven't done, because the bullies are trying to cover up the fact that they've all been caught with their hands in the money pot, including, unfortunately, now King Charles. Because, like I said, the evidence can work against him or for him, depending on the side he chose. So now it's going to work against him. And it starts with things like, because the royal family are now under investigation for all this stuff that's going on with the properties and rental properties, it's going to end up looking into their property purchases and sales as well. And when it comes out that Zelensky bought a house at Highgrove, that the king sold him a house, and that money, the money that was used, was some of this laundered money that's come from human trafficking and all of that, that'll be it for the king. And then because are giving £1 billion to the shipping company, and yeah, that'll be it. It's such a shame, but God said it was going to be the king's choice, the king's decision. So it's not going to be a bad thing for Great Britain and the Commonwealth in the long run. It just means that we're all going to have to roll our sleeves up, tear down everything we've known for the last few hundred years and start again. But it means we get a rebirth, and that's not a bad thing. It's just going to be sad, because we're going to have to let go of, I'm getting emotional, getting all emotion. We're going to have to let go of our queen, our beloved queen. We're going to have to let go of it all, which is a shame. But you'll save billions. Billions, I mean, how many billions does each Commonwealth country pay the king? So, swings and roundabouts, really. Just don't be afraid of what's coming. It seems scary now and everybody's panicking now, but I promise you, as like with my Zorb dream, this is actually happening for a good reason. And when it's all over, everyone will see what that good reason is. Just understand that everything that's happening in the world is to highlight all the people that are about to be removed from the world of celebrity, the world of business, and the world of politics, and the world of fame and power. They're all about to go down. Every single one of them. They're all going down together, because they're all in it together. So once you name one name, all the other names will start falling with them. And von der Leyen and Callas and Mers and Macron and Starmer and that, their names are already starting to turn up in the human trafficking, money laundering circles on social media now. Mark Carney as well. The Canadians are absolutely spitting tacks, realising how corrupt their beloved Mark Carney is. So I'll put the link to the Zorb dream and the message from God in the description box below, but he painted it very clear. My codes with Queen Elizabeth, all I can think now is do right by Great Britain. It's the only thing that I got wrong. There's still hope. The King may wake up and change his mind if it turns out that what I saw was robot lips, Elon Musk fake news, then okay, there's still time for the king to do the right thing. But if not, just don't panic. It will give Britain the reason to have the revolution they've been craving. Because, like I said in my live the other day, when the king doesn't do right by God, he's no longer fit to do right by the people, and then the people are allowed to remove him. He's gone against God's law by not listening to the people. So the king's broken the highest law in the land, the two highest laws in the land, which means that now the people have the right to have a revolution, a legal revolution. It's in the Magna Carta. It's all done legally. They can legally remove him now, abolish the monarchy. And so he's giving people what they want, really. Just, it's such a shame. It could have gone so different. He was supposed to be the hero. It's the one thing I got wrong, was that King Charles was supposed to be the hero. But somebody else is going to step up. Somebody else is going to step up and lead Great Britain um, to peace and clarity. We're going to have to tear everything down and start again, but we'll do it. We can do it. We're Commonwealth nations. We're built of strong things. We're farming nations. You know, we built our countries from the ground up. Um, so yeah, we can do it. It's just a shame. But you know, the king's a grown man. Everybody knows, it is well documented. I've spent over a year and a half warning that man what was going to happen if he didn't do the right thing. And now, here we go. So don't worry about it. So Starmer's almost out. Labour's almost gone. In the new year, what's going to happen with 2026 is we are going to see the collapse of the Commonwealth. We're going to see the abolishment of the monarchy. We're going to see countries like Scotland and Wales and England and that become independent. That's what we're going to start seeing next year. There will be no World War Three. You don't need to worry about that. There will be no World War Three. They can threaten all they like, but it's not going to happen. They're panicking. They're all broke. They are all running on the smell of an oily rag. They thought war against Russia would be easy. And then if you look at the way history runs, like pre-World War One and Two and all of that, they run their economies into the ground and then make the money back during the war, because war is profit. There's a lot more money to be made in war than not having a war. And people like Macron and Starmer and Zelensky are facing calls for new elections. And by law, you can't have elections if you're in a war. So they're trying to start these wars so that they don't have the elections, which is one of the reasons why Starmer's trying to stop these elections. But he can't actually stop elections. The Prime Minister has no say over how elections are run. It's the MPs who control everything. So I don't know what the hell he's going on about. He can't actually stop elections. He has no power to. He has to change the law in order to stop elections, and he hasn't done that. So now the MPs are talking about having a snap election. So what's going to happen is there'll be a snap election. The UK will bring in a new leader, and then in the new year, after like Christmas and the New Year, we're going to see the abolishment of the monarchy. We'll see countries like Scotland getting their independence, and then everyone will be happy. But it just means that the cost is going to come from having to take everything down that had the crown and the king and queen's heads on it. Having to change our money, change the face of our buildings, change our laws. That's where all the money's going to come in. But we can do it, and it will be done, and people will be happy. The only thing I don't know with the king no longer being the king, whether that means that he can be held accountable at The Hague and stuff, because I know that what's happening in the Ukraine, this war against Russia, ends up at The Hague. Not just COVID, but yeah, this war in the Ukraine ends up at The Hague. Interestingly, I keep talking about von der Leyen being responsible for Germany having to change its name, and that Germany becoming so broke that it has to join like another country in order to survive, and so that it can start making money again, because they thought they were going to be making all their money back from this war, and it's not happening. They're broke. They have no money left. It's all a ruse. It's all a lie. It's all a front. So just hang in there a little bit longer, because what's starting to happen now is there's already calls for like Italy's completely sorted their government out by shutting everything down, by refusing to comply. They completely kicked Italy's butt. now Italy seem to be starting to make a lot of good choices, embracing God and morality and that, doing the right thing, protecting their gold reserves and keeping like the EU and all of that away from their gold and refusing to buy and sell weapons for Ukraine and, wanting to work on diplomacy and peace and all that. So Italy seemed to be surprisingly conscious. It appears like they might be starting to become consciously aware of the power of God, which is wonderful. But for everybody else, their nations are going to be run into the ground because they were expecting a war they're not going to get in order to make the money back that they've been stealing, like the £22 billion hole and their money laundering and all of that. Like it's all going to come back on them. So we'll start seeing European and NATO leaders dropping like flies now. All I can tell you is that whatever's happening in Ukraine and whatever is happening with this Donald Trump, Bill Gates, Elon Musk thing, the two are connected. And we're going to see people in the EU and NATO and that, celebrities and maybe even royals and that turning up at Palm Beach having to give evidence in this court case that's going on. I just know the two are connected somehow, and when the names start dropping, that's it. But we just have to kind of grip on and hold on and wait. So, yeah, so now the king has made his decision. What's going to happen next in the new year once we have these new elections is we will start seeing the frameworks to tear the monarchy down because people will no longer have faith in the king because he chose the side of the human traffickers. He's defending human trafficking, which doesn't look good for him with the whole Epstein thing, which is what I warned him would happen. He's got money ties now into human trafficking that he's going to have to explain away in court and to the people. And when they find out, that's it. William will never be king. George will never be king. Like that. That's it. There will be no monarchy. Buckingham Palace and that will end up becoming tourist attractions. I think he'll be allowed to keep his personal wealth, but he won't be allowed to keep any of the properties because he's no longer king. So it's no longer. It will be no longer considered his land. It'll all be given back to the people. So that's what we're starting to see happen now. So don't worry about what's happening. It's all for a good reason. It doesn't look like it on the surface, but I promise you it is all happening for the people, not against the people. God had to let them think they could get away with all of this stuff long enough that we would be able to know exactly what they were doing behind closed doors once the poop hit the fan. And the poop hasn't technically hit the fan, the poop hit the golden toilet. So this is it. So sit back and watch, because we're about to see some very powerful people be dethroned in real time, in full view of everybody, and everything will be wiped clean, and nations will get to rebuild all over Europe, the Commonwealth, everything. So don't be afraid. Don't let them feed you the fear, and have faith, because I promise you, stuff is about to happen in quick succession where you're going to realise that God's plan is going perfectly. The only thing I got wrong was the king, but it was God who said what happens to Great Britain is up to the king. So my codes might have been that I was seeing the best possible outcome should the king do the right thing, but because he's not, and God said it's what happens is up to him. Now he's made his choice and he's chosen his side. It's not the people that are going to lose out. It's the people who chose the side to defend the traffickers. The evidence could have worked in the king's favour or against him. depending on the side he chose. And he's chosen his side. So now the evidence that I have and the evidence coming out during these investigations that everybody else is having will work against the king. But he was given the option, like I gave him a year and a half to make up his mind. So there we go. But for everybody else, get the popcorn, clutch your pearls, girls, because it's about to get very exciting in the most hilarious kind of ways. Um, these presidents and leaders in that are hanging on by a thread, and they're desperately hoping if they throw money at Ukraine to shut Zelensky up, and get everybody to focus on, ooh, bad Russia, they're saving children, how dare they? They're stopping us from taking organs from the Ukrainian soldiers dying on the battlefield, because that's what they do. That's what they're doing. They take the organs of the Ukrainian soldiers and they're dying on the battlefield, and then harvest them like it. That's what they're doing. The EU and NATO and all that. They've been caught like loads of times. It's all documented. It's all true. And so yeah, the King and Starmer and EU and Carney and all that are like, oh my God, everybody look at Russia. They're like doing really bad things because they're trying to save children and keep people's organs in their bodies, grrr, sort of thing. But it's too late. It's too late. The dominoes have already started to fall. So, yeah. So it's about to get very exciting. So get your popcorn. I think people, my timings are always off because it doesn't matter how soon I want something to happen. My codes have to work in alignment with God's timing. So I want to say that people are going to be in for like a better Christmas than they're expecting. But it might be in the new year as well. But I just know that in terms of Great Britain and countries like France and Germany and all of that, you're about to see like almost like overnight changes. Like people will wake up and find out that the police turned up in the middle of the night and took Macron and his wife away. That Keir Starmer was arrested in the morning, and you know that sort of thing. Wait for it. You're going to start hearing at von der Leyen and all that. They're going to start making arrests. So just get your popcorn and clutch your pearls, girls, because it's all about to kick off. But it's going to be amusing and entertaining for us, but not for the people being taken down. And God promised that it would be very public and very humiliating takedowns to teach them all a lesson about how they're not the ones in charge of what happens with the world. He is. So now we're about to see God in action. Just have faith. Choose the side of God. God is the one saving the children. If you're anti-Russia, you're pro-human trafficking. You're pro-child trafficking. You're pro-Epstein. And they reckon that this case with Musk and Trump and Gates is worse than the Epstein one. They're calling it Epstein 2.0, but apparently it's worse than Epstein. That it's a newer organisation, because I had said on X months ago that Donald Trump had his own human trafficking business, and now I'm right. But apparently it's worse. Remember, Jeffrey Epstein kept saying that Donald Trump was worse than him, that Donald Trump was like a psycho. People are saying that this new case is worse than Epstein, and if it's Donald Trump's business, because it's the court documents seem to refer to the fact that it's Donald Trump's business that Musk and Gates and that are involved in, and that people are saying that it's worse than Epstein. And you know the furor, the fury, the sting that kicked off with the whole Epstein thing. Well, apparently this is supposed to be worse because it's Donald in charge of it and not Epstein. And Epstein said himself, Donald is a monster. So people are saying that the documents and that are quite distressing. Like the stuff that you read about it is quite distressing. Um, he's brutal. He doesn't. We know from the Epstein thing that he treated the victims really, really bad. Bill Gates likes to experiment on them, strap them down to dental chairs and remove their teeth and jaws and all of that, you know. So if it's worse than the Jeffrey Epstein thing and it's going to be pulling people like Macron and von der Leyen and possibly even the king and that into court over it, yeah, just brace yourself. But just remember it's been done so that people can make no mistake about the purity of the soul of the person that they're allowing to run their country. And it will be a wake-up call for everybody to make sure that people like Starmer and Macron and von der Leyen that can no longer do what they've been getting away with. We had to learn the hard way that we need to make better choices in who we allow to make our laws that govern our countries and govern ourselves, and who we put into positions of power. Like von der Leyen, she's not an elected official. Like laws will be changed. Everything that's happening in the world now is to teach everybody in the new world how not to make the same mistakes. Like World War Two. We're technically already in a world war, but it's a holy one, not a ground war. But God's doing his bit, Satan's doing his bit, and they're all about to come down. I think we just had to wait for the king to make his decision. And he's made his decision. If my ex is anything to go by, and it's not robot lips, I call it robot lips because I had that dream about Elon Musk making fake posts, trying to pass fake posts off as the news. So, right, so I'm going to go. So I'm just preparing you for what's coming next. Don't be scared. It's whether you like to believe it or not, it's actually all working out in our favour, because now we're starting to see who needs to be removed from power, and it's all about to kick off. Thank God for the Magna Carta and that, because there's about to be a revolution, not a civil war, a revolution. A revolution has legal support. It will be done legally. Everything will be done the right way, the civil way. That's the bit that comes next. Just think this time next year we're not going to have a monarchy. There will be no king. It's just weird, but you know, it is what it is. And I put my faith in God, so everything that's coming, it's not bad for us. So I'll put links in the description box so you can see the dream, see the two dreams actually, and then you'll know what's coming, and then you'll know not to be afraid, because it ends up tearing down the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization, because remember it's Bill Gates and all of that, and Elon Musk, and they're all members of the WHO and the WEF, you know, King Charles, Klaus Schwab, all that. That's another dream. Where I had the dream where Schwab was strapped to the Epstein building and then had to stand trial, where he got 150 years, and it's all tied up with this alien Zorb ball dream, where the signs were being flipped backwards. Whatever's happening in Ukraine with this investigation and this court case in Palm Beach with Trump and Gates and that, it's going to tear the World Economic Forum down. It's going to tear the World Health Organization down. It's going to tear NATO down. It's going to tear the UN down. It's going to tear the Commonwealth apart. All of it. But it needs to happen. God knows what he's doing. This is basically the end of the EU. Everyone will go back to their own independent rule. Just watch. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō. Mwah. I'm on, God bless Russia, eh? I'm on the side of God. I'm here to defend and protect children, not hurt them. So, you know, if that costs me my life or my freedom, so be it. But I have to die with a conscience that know that I took the side of good and not evil. And God is good. God is great. Speak to you later. Mwah.